The road wound through dense forest, headlights slicing through trees like pale knives. Daniels drove without speaking, his jaw tight, eyes darting from mirror to mirror. Emily sat in the back, cradling the baby against her chest. She'd stopped crying hours ago, settling into an eerie silence that felt almost too aware. Rex lay beside them, every muscle coiled, every breath measured. They were all waiting for what none of them could name. Emily whispered to the child, fingers brushing her cheek. "You're safe now, Claire. We won't let them take you." Danielle's voice broke through the quiet. "We're about 20 minutes out. There's an old ranger station off Route 6. It hasn't been used in years. No cameras, no paper trail. My contact will meet us there." Emily glanced out the window. "You trust them?" "With our lives," Daniel said, but even he didn't sound convinced. 10 more minutes passed before the trees gave way to a clearing. The ranger station loomed ahead, 2 stories of timber and glass lawn abandoned to moss and dust. Daniels pulled in and killed the engine. "No lights," he said. "We move fast. Rex, stay close." The old dog was already at the door before Daniels finished speaking, his nose in the air, tail stiff. Emily followed, baby wrapped tightly in blankets, her heart beating too fast. The wind had picked up again, dry this time, but restless. Inside, the air smelled of old paper and forgotten years. Daniel swept the room quickly, checking corners, unlocking the back hallway. "We wait here. My contact's 10 minutes out." Emily sat on a battered bench, watching the fireless hearth. The baby shifted, lips parting in a breath too slow. Something was wrong. "Daniels," she said, suddenly alert. "Her temperature's dropping again." He crossed the room, leaning down. "There's a med kit in the truck. I'll grab it. Stay here." The door swung closed behind him. The baby gave a soft whimper, and then Rex growled. It wasn't his usual warning sound. This one was low, rising like a storm building in his throat. Emily turned, following his gaze, and froze. The hallway door, the one Daniels had locked moments before, was ajar. Her breath hitched. Someone was already inside. She moved slowly, clutching the baby tighter. Rex stepped forward, hackles raised, his body between her and the darkness beyond the hall. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Not Harmon. Someone else. Younger. Dressed in black. No badge, no insignia. Eyes too calm, too empty. "You've made this harder than it had to be," the man said. "She's not yours." Emily backed away. "She's not yours, either. She doesn't belong in your world," the man replied. "She's an asset, intellectual property. You don't even know what she's carrying." Rex snarled and lunged. The man was fast. He drew a stun baton and swept low, striking Rex across the shoulder. The dog yelped, staggered, but didn't fall. Emily screamed. And then Daniels was there, bursting through the door behind the man, gun raised. "Down!" The agent turned, struck out, but Daniels fired once, twice. The shots echoed like thunder. The intruder crumpled to the floor. Silence. Deafening. Rex limped to Emily's side, trembling, blood staining his flank. She fell to her knees, sobbing, holding both him and the baby close. Daniels kicked the baton away, breathing hard. "We've got to move. There's no time." He's not alone. Outside, distant engines roared to life. More were coming. Daniels pulled open the trapdoor beneath the hearth. "This way. Emergency exit. Underground tunnel leads to the river." Emily descended first, careful not to jostle the baby. Rex followed slowly, limping but determined. Daniels came last, sealing the door behind them. The tunnel was narrow, damp, smelling of mildew and stone. The baby stirred in her arms but didn't cry. Emily whispered to her, voice cracking. "You hold on, sweetheart. Just a little longer." Light appeared at the end of the tunnel. When they emerged, the river stretched ahead like black glass under skies scattered with stars. A small boat waited, engine idling. A woman stepped out, short, sharp-eyed, wrapped in a leather coat. "You must be Emily." Daniels nodded. "Get them out. Safe house in Redcliffe." No phones. No names. The woman held out her arms. I'll take her. Emily hesitated, clinging tighter. It's okay, Daniel said gently. She'll protect her. Emily nodded and handed the baby over, tears in her eyes. Rex leaned against her, exhausted but standing. The woman looked at Rex, then at Daniels. He comes too. Daniels blinked. You sure? She nodded. He's part of this now. They climbed into the boat and pushed off, the engine humming low. As the river carried them into the dark, Emily looked back. The station was glowing, not with lights, but with fire. Somewhere behind them, someone had decided to erase everything. But not everyone. Emily looked down at the baby, safe in the woman's arms, and then at Rex, wounded, tired, but alive. We're not finished, she whispered. They think they ended it, but they just started something bigger. Rex raised his head to the wind, ears twitching, eyes forward. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. The clinic's front windows pulsed with red and blue as emergency responders converged on the scene. The storm had passed, leaving behind only wet pavement, a bitter wind, and a thick, electric silence. Inside, Dr. Emily Hayes moved between the baby and the old dog, her thoughts racing faster than her hands could work. The baby, stable now, lay swaddled beneath a heat lamp, her chest rising with tiny, uneven breaths. Rex rested by the doorway, eyes half closed, his soaked fur now drying beneath a blanket, though he refused to fully relax. Emily had called 911 the moment she realized what she was dealing with. The child wasn't just abandoned. She was left. There was an intent behind it, a pattern. The symbols inked on her cloth weren't decorative. They were systematic, measured, clinical. A knock at the clinic door broke her from her thoughts. Officer Dean Daniels stepped inside, rain slickers still dripping, flashlight in hand. He was tall, middle-aged, with a permanent frown etched into his forehead. His eyes landed on Rex and widened in disbelief. "No way," he said. That's Harrison's dog." Emily stood. "You know him?" "Yeah," Daniels murmured, stepping closer. "Rex. He was part of the K-9 unit in the next county. Worked with Officer David Harrison, until they both disappeared." "Disappeared?" Daniels nodded slowly. 2 years ago, during a trafficking case. Harrison was tracking a lead on a black market ring. Children, organs, the whole nightmare. One night, poof, vanished off the grid. No body, no signs. Some said he skipped town. Others, they thought he got too close to something big. Emily looked at Rex, who hadn't taken his eyes off the baby. "You think this is connected?" "I think," Daniel said, kneeling beside the dog, "Rex might be the only one who knows what really happened." He stood again and gestured toward the baby. "What's her story?" Emily hesitated, unsure how much to say. Then she walked to the small tray beside the examination table and held up the blood-stained cloth. This was wrapped around her. "Look at the stitching." Daniels took it, studied the thread, then squinted at the faint serial numbers sewn into one corner. "This isn't something you find in a nursery. This looks like military surplus." "There's more," she added. "Scars. Unusual ones. Surgical, but too small for standard procedures. Like someone's been inside her body already." Danielle's expression darkened. "You think someone was experimenting?" "I don't know," she said. "But whoever had her, they didn't want her found." Daniels pulled out his radio. "I'll put out an alert. Contact the feds. If this ties into Harrison's old case, we're going to need more eyes." As he stepped outside to make the call, Emily turned back to her patient. The baby stirred under the heat lamp, eyelids fluttering. She was so small, too small for her age, but alert, curious, even. "Hey there," Emily whispered. "You've been through something terrible, haven't you?" The child blinked up at her, lips twitching. It wasn't a smile, but it was something. Hours passed. Daniels returned with a forensic team. They collected the cloth, took photos, asked questions. Rex stayed still for all of it, unmoving until they approached the baby. Then he growled low in his throat, not aggressive, but protective. Emily placed a gentle hand on his head. Easy, big guy. They're trying to help. Daniels lingered after the others left, standing near the doorway with arms crossed. I ran the symbols through our database. They don't match any civilian group, but the serial pattern? It's consistent with medical research firms. Emily raised an eyebrow. You mean like hospitals? He shook his head. Private labs, black budget contracts. We're talking about entities that operate outside public knowledge. Places where kids don't get adopted, they get built. A silence stretched between them. Then Daniels asked, "Did you get her blood work?" Emily hesitated, then walked over to her laptop. I drew a sample earlier. Something felt off. I compared it to archived DNA files. You have that on hand? I keep a copy of missing persons' DNA markers for cross-reference, she said, especially for young patients. It's legal if they're publicly listed. Daniels waited. She clicked through a few screens, then turned the monitor toward him. Her DNA matched a child reported deceased 2 years ago. Claire Marin. She was declared dead in a car accident. No remains were ever recovered. Daniels leaned in, reading the file. Are you saying this is her? Emily pointed to notes. It's her DNA. But if that girl died and this one's alive, then someone made another. Daniel stepped back, his breath audible. Jesus Christ. Emily leaned against the wall, heart pounding. There's more. I scanned the baby again, and I found something under her skin. It's not a medical chip. It's proprietary. No manufacturer ID. Hidden just above the femur. Daniels exhaled slowly, visibly rattled. That's not a tracker. That's inventory. Rex lifted his head suddenly, ears alert. Emily turned to him. What is it? A low growl rumbled in the dog's throat. Then came the knock. It was soft. Too soft. Daniels placed a hand on his sidearm and moved toward the door, peeking through the security camera feed above the desk. One man. Unmarked vehicle. Doesn't look like local law enforcement. Emily glanced at the baby, who had begun to whimper. The room's temperature dropped perceptibly. Daniels opened the door a crack. Can I help you? The man outside wore a long coat, his badge held low and turned slightly away from the camera. His voice was calm, too calm. We received a tip about a child in distress. I'm with Child Welfare. Authorize a retriever. Daniels didn't blink. Name? Agent Harmon. Federal Placement Division. Daniels reached slowly into his pocket and clicked the safety off his radio. We didn't call anyone from that division. Identification, please. The man paused. I think it would be best if you stepped aside. That was all Rex needed. He surged forward in a flash of fur and muscle, placing himself between the baby and the door. His teeth were bared, the low snarl rising to something far more primal. Back away, Daniels ordered. Now. Agent Harmon held up his hands, face unreadable. You have no idea what you're dealing with. That child is classified. If she stays here, people will come looking, and they won't knock next time. Daniels stepped forward. If she's classified, then there's paperwork. I'll need to see it. Harmon said nothing. Daniels shut the door slowly, locking it. He turned to Emily, his jaw tight. We're sitting on something too big. This isn't just some trafficking op. This is a lab-grown child, a product someone lost. Emily moved to the baby, picked her up carefully, holding her close. She's not a product. She's a person. And she was rescued, not retrieved. Rex sat at her feet, unmoving, but his eyes were fixed on the door as if it would explode at any moment. We have to move her, Daniel said. Tonight, quietly. Rain slammed against the windows of the farmhouse like waves on a forgotten shipwreck. The storm had rolled in heavy, unexpected, and angry, flooding the ditches, turning the dirt roads into rivers of mud. Amid the thunder's roar and wind's howl, a single figure stirred in the shadows of a quiet barn. Rex's ears twitched before he opened his eyes. Old reflexes fired without permission. The retired K9 dog, his muzzle now dusted with gray, his movements slower than they once were, had been dreaming of sirens, of gunpowder, of the sharp commands of his handler. But the noise that woke him wasn't the storm. It was something else, something softer, almost drowned in the chaos. A cry. He stood, joints cracking, and padded toward the sound. His paws moved with purpose, though his body betrayed hints of age and fatigue. A lifetime of service had left him scarred but sharpened. Even now, years after his last operation, something in his chest surged when danger called. Outside, wind battered the barn doors. Rex pushed through them with a grunt, slipping into the darkness. Rain soaked him instantly, but he didn't stop. He moved through the pasture, head low, tracking the sound that didn't belong to the night. A whimper, higher pitched now, frantic. His breath steamed in the air. Each step was slower, more deliberate. Lightning flashed, and in its brief glow he saw it. Beneath the gnarled limbs of an old elm tree, barely visible among the roots and wet leaves, lay something small. A bundle. It stirred, cried again. Rex froze. The sound, so fragile, pierced deeper than any siren. He approached carefully. The bundle was wrapped in cloth, torn, soaked, and stained with something dark. Inside, a baby. Its lips were blue, its eyes fluttering open and closed. Shaking hands might have placed it there or thrown it. The wind hissed around them like a warning. Rex sniffed at the child, letting out a soft, almost inaudible whine. There was no one else. No scent of a mother. No warmth nearby. Only the stench of fear and the sharp copper tang of blood. The baby shifted again, mouth opening in a silent scream. Instinct took over. With the same care he once used to drag wounded officers to safety, Rex grasped the cloth in his jaws. It was awkward, heavy, but he didn't falter. The storm didn't matter. The pain in his joints didn't matter. He turned back toward the road, the baby cradled in his teeth, and began to walk. Mile after mile, each step felt like the last one he might ever take. He stumbled once in the creek, landing hard on his side, but held the baby above the water as he flailed back to his feet. His vision blurred. The cold was biting. But he didn't stop. At the edge of town, streetlights flickered in the wind, dim halos in the fog. The veterinary clinic glowed faintly across the square. He knew this place. Smelled of safety, medicine, kindness. Rex climbed the clinic steps, dropped the bundle gently on the mat, and pawed at the door. Once, twice, 3 times. His barks were hoarse and broken, but urgent. Inside, Dr. Emily Hayes jolted awake on the break room couch. She wasn't on shift, but the storm had delayed her drive home. She grabbed her coat, heart pounding, as she heard the scratching again. When she opened the door, the wind nearly tore it from her hands. And there he was. The old dog, drenched and shivering, stood guard over a sodden cloth bundle. For a second, Emily couldn't process what she was seeing. Then the cloth moved. A thin cry slipped out. Her breath caught. Oh, my God! She dropped to her knees and gathered the baby into her arms. The child's skin was cold to the touch, lips purple, but a pulse fluttered faintly beneath her fingers. The dog nudged with his nose, then slumped against the doorway with a grunt. Emily rushed inside, calling for help with one hand and checking vitals with the other. She wrapped the baby in warm towels, placed her under a heating lamp, and monitored her breathing. Only after securing the infant did she glance back at the dog. He hadn't moved. His eyes, dim but watchful, stayed on the baby. You brought her here, she whispered. You saved her. She fetched a blanket, wrapping it around Rex. He didn't resist, only sighed. Emily touched the ID tag on his collar. The name was clear, REX, and beneath it an inscription, Asterisk K9 Unit Retired. Officer Harrison, asterisk. Recognition flickered. She'd heard stories about a legendary search and rescue K9 that vanished during an investigation years ago, presumed dead or stolen. But here he was, alive, and delivering miracles in the middle of a storm. She turned back to the baby. As she unwrapped the soaked fabric more carefully this time, something odd caught her attention. The cloth wasn't an ordinary blanket. It felt thick, almost coarse, military grade. Stitching lined its edges. Numbers. Letters. A name? Emily held her breath. The child whimpered again, her tiny hand curling around Emily's finger. Then her eyes fell on a smear of something dark against the fabric. Not mud, not blood. Ink. As she pulled back the edge of the cloth, her fingers froze. Beneath the layers, etched in faint, delicate script, was something that made her blood run cold. Not a birth date, not a name, a symbol, and beside it, in barely visible ink, a series of numbers that looked like a code. Medical, serial, something clinical. Emily stared at the infant, suddenly aware that this wasn't just a baby someone had left behind. This child had been marked, labeled, cataloged. She looked up at Rex, who watched her with steady eyes. Not just a savior tonight. Perhaps a witness. Perhaps more. Emily swallowed hard. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her phone. She needed to call the police, the hospital, someone. But deep in her gut, she already knew this was an accident, and someone might already be looking for the child Rex had just rescued.